October 17th, 3 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. A single transaction flickers across a decentralized ledger, an untraceable whisper carrying the weight of $110 million. Who moved it, and why did they leave the digital breadcrumbs leading straight to a ghost wallet that shouldn't exist? How does a ransomware syndicate operating in the shadows of the dark web suddenly acquire assets traceable to the very geopolitical tensions they claim to profit from? The chilling realization arrives moments later. This wasn't just a heist. It was a digital handshake between the criminal underworld and a sovereign power. The cursor blinked, a solitary, insistent heartbeat on a screen saturated with the green glow of terminal code. The keys below responded with a feverish, almost panicked rhythm, the clicking echoing the urgency of a countdown timer no one else could hear. The target was huge, a municipal utility managing the power grid for 3 major cities. The initial ransom demand had been met, the encryption keys handed over, the data supposedly wiped clean. But the payment confirmation wasn't to the expected cluster of tumbling services. It was an anomaly, a stark clean transfer directly into an address flagged years ago by international intelligence agencies as a known digital front for state-sponsored espionage operations. The ghost wallet had awakened. The clock was set back 6 months, deep into the murky operational planning phase of Lockbit. Not the flashy, public-facing ransomware group, but the hidden architects, the ones who managed the infrastructure, the decryption algorithms, the global recruitment drives. They presented themselves as mercenaries of chaos, but the truth was far more structured, far more strategic. Their servers weren't rented, they were provisioned through layers of shell companies purchased with state-level capital. Their growth wasn't organic, it was an engineered surge, designed to saturate specific infrastructure sectors simultaneously across NATO countries. Imagine the operator, known only by the handle Black Swan, sitting thousands of miles away, the air conditioning struggling against the humid night. Black Swan wasn't worried about the $110 million transfer itself. That was the expected profit from the utility attack. The worry was the deviation, the unauthorized, almost arrogant routing of those funds into the ghost wallet. It suggested a level of operational complacency, or, worse, a direct, unmasked instruction from the patron state. This wasn't the first time Lockbit had been suspected of state ties. Whispers had circulated since their first major breach of a pharmaceutical giant 3 years prior, where critical vaccine research data, rather than being sold or destroyed, simply vanished from public view. At the time, analysts dismissed it as noise, attributing the disappearance to a lucky secondary data grab by the crew. But now, viewing the transaction history of the ghost wallet, the pattern snaps into terrifying focus. The utility payment wasn't profit, it was a performance review bonus. The narrative around modern cybercrime loves the lone wolf, the rogue hacker fueled by greed. This documentary rejects that simplification. The reality is a supply chain of exploitation. The individuals performing the actual intrusion, the ones deploying the malware across the utility network, were likely low-level contractors, well-paid but disposable. Their focus was extraction. They never saw the final destination of the coins. Their world was the immediacy of the attack vector, the thrill of bypassing endpoint detection. But Black Swan saw everything. Black Swan was the nexus point where cyber mercenary met military objective. When the utility's chief security officer initiated the emergency transfer, a pre-agreed signal was sent, not to the Lockbit command and control, but through a heavily encrypted, one-time use channel that punched directly into a secure military satellite feed. The destination address for the $110 million was the ultimate key to unlocking this state connection. Let's examine the architecture of the ghost wallet itself. It's an Ethereum address, but one that had lain dormant for 18 months before receiving the utility funds. During those 18 silent months, it had received 7 smaller, almost insignificant transfers. A few $100,000 here, $1 million there. These amounts were too small for a significant criminal entity, but they were perfectly sized for funding covert intelligence gathering operations, paying for zero-day exploits, purchasing access brokers, or funding deep cover operatives embedded within cybersecurity firms. These micropayments were the operational budget disguised as digital lint. The moment the $110 million landed, the wallet didn't just sit there waiting for dispersion. It immediately executed a pre-coded smart contract. This is where the true sophistication of the state linkage becomes apparent. The contract didn't immediately sweep the funds into untraceable mixers. Instead, it split the total into three distinct pools. Pool 1, 40% immediately vanished into mixers, the standard criminal cleanup operation, designed to confuse the eventual FBI or Europol investigation. This was the camouflage, the necessary noise to make it look like a typical greedy ransomware pay. Pool 2, 50% was routed into a complex series of decentralized finance protocols, locking the funds in high-yield, high-risk staking pools. The goal here wasn't immediate access, but exponential growth, treating the stolen funds as seed capital for future, larger operations, effectively laundering the state's involvement through DeFi speculation. But Pool 3, the final 10%, carried the weight of the entire investigation. It was routed through a specific obscure blockchain bridge linking the Ethereum network to a legacy permissioned ledger system, the kind of archaic, highly regulated system used exclusively by certain national treasuries and defense contractors for internal ledger balancing. That jump, from the decentralized chaos of ransomware to the rigidly controlled environment of a state ledger, should have been impossible. It implied backdoors built into the utility's own core systems long before the ransomware attack ever hit. The question sharpens. Did Lockbit hack the utility? Or were they simply the cleanup crew hired to cover the tracks of a government-sanctioned data exfiltration? The entity behind Pool 3 wasn't interested in profits. They were interested in operational security and plausible deniability. The 10% wasn't money for operatives, it was a demonstration of access. It was the state confirming to the Lockbit leadership, "We used your infrastructure. The payment is your fee for securing our intrusion." The evidence trail goes cold at the bridge, but the metadata remains. The timing of the bridge transaction aligns perfectly down to the millisecond with a known, unacknowledged cyber offensive launched against the same utility infrastructure 7 days before the ransomware notification went public. That initial offensive wasn't about data theft, it was about installing the persistence mechanisms, the digital tripwires that allowed the ransomware deployment to be so swift and devastating. The pressure mounts on Black Swan. The intelligence community now has undeniable transactional proof linking a top-tier ransomware group to a state actor, not through vague IP addresses or shared malware signatures, but through documented asset movement. The financial architecture is the smoking gun. The theft of the utility data, which contains schematics for national defense communications relays routed through that local grid, was the state objective. The $110 million ransom was the smokescreen ensuring the utility paid quickly and quietly, without inviting deeper scrutiny that might uncover the pre-existing backdoor. The final act of the ghost wallet is the most telling. After the funds were split, the wallet did not simply go dormant. A small final transaction, less than 1 Bitcoin, was sent to a physical address located in a specific Eastern European capital, the same city where Lockbit's perceived leadership structure has always been rumored to be headquartered. This final transfer wasn't encrypted. It was signed with a unique cryptographic key, a digital signature that the state's own cyber command units use internally to verify deployment authorizations. It was a resignation letter, written in the language of finance and embedded in the architecture of the crime. It signaled compliance, success, and the formal handover of the operational theater. The ghost wallet wasn't a criminal entity's vault. It was a temporary escrow account managed on behalf of a government contractor, a secure holding space used only when state-level interests superseded pure criminal profit. The $110 million ghost wallet didn't just disappear into the digital ether, it dissolved perfectly into a system designed to look like a chaotic crime, revealing instead a chillingly organized, state-sanctioned shadow economy where geopolitical objectives are funded not through national budgets, but through the ransomware economy, using the world's most feared cyber gangs as unwitting or perhaps entirely witting subcontract. The next time the lights flicker, you might not be experiencing a technical failure. You might just be witnessing the aftermath of a meticulously planned ledger reconciliation.